So I am in a bit of a Carol Herzer role, as some of you know. I have about 30 years to catch up on, so this is the original Illuminated tarot by Carol Herzer, and it's called Illuminated because she illuminated the images, but this is a special edition. The reason why this is special is because this has been reproduced directly from her original painting. Now, I am not familiar enough with Carol's creative or production process. All I know is that her production process is very old-fashioned, very manual. So, for example, these images aren't digitally mastered or they're not digitally stored or composed. These are actual scans or photos of actual artwork laid on top of an actual white piece of paper, which create the borders. That's how I understand that. So when I first encountered her work in October and I asked, can we remove the titles? Her answer was that I have to remount and that's a lot of work, and I didn't understand. My 21st century mind thought, well, can you just not remove the titles and then just, save that as another file, I suppose, and or change the borders to different color. Click, 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 voila, you have a different color. And she used the term mounting, which gave me a clue. She said I have to remount, and the black bordered original illuminated edition is the only one that's digitized, I believe. Again, I do not know enough of her production process to tell you, but what I can tell you is that this is created directly from her original painting. So the implication is that the currently or the more recent, because she's been doing this for 30 years, so I can't speak for how it was done 20 years ago or a decade ago. I can only speak from the extent of the time span that I have, which is in the last year or two, because my research heavily relied on people who showed their decks, which they've purchased in 2017 and 2018, and I don't have enough information or data of those produced and purchased and shown before that. So, I mean, what does that mean in terms of the last 2 years production of the original Illuminated? I don't know. All I know is that this one here is reproduced directly from her original art that is 5 inches by 7 inches. And this is the perfect size, or the one that is closest to a standard tarot deck. But this is cost a bit more. This is $150 with the bag included, plus shipping. Now, she has explored priority mail for shipping to certain countries after she was assured that priority mail provide step-by-step tracking as well as insurance, I believe. And so you have to ask her whether your country is one of those ones which she feels comfortable with shipping priority rather than her usual priority express, which costs close to double as much. So I am doing a close-up here just to show you that the lines are crisp and the colors are more defined. And I've been told that it's not because it's higher in definition. And again, I don't know enough of her production process, and I don't know enough about the printing process, whether it's analog or digital. All I know is that these are photos of actual paintings. So these are actual painting placed on top of a physical white paper with text on the pieces of white paper. Not pieces, but it's a huge piece of white paper. And then there's a grid, and each of the grid or each of the squares, the square represent the card. And then you put each of these actual 5 by 7 inches artwork in each of the grid, and that grid is then cut to become papers. Do you know what I mean? It's very manual. So I'm just going to show you a quick close-up. I will put several links down below of the original Illuminated as flipped through by a variety of people, including Kasia from Terra Map, Joanne from Sacred Space Japan, and Beth from Owl Cat 76 or 74 or something, 75. So again, I'll do a close-up to show you the clarity of the line work. Let me just try again. Okay, it won't focus. Let me just focus here. Right, there it is. So I've asked Carol to leave the back blank because I'm not a fan of the pattern backs. So if you remember the guide as the Hermit, if you remember from my flip through of Carol Herzer first tarot deck, Tarot, T-A-R-O, I'll link down below or up here in the eye in the sky at the end of this video, you'll understand why she called the Hermit the guide. So if you, I've been calling this original, but if you are inquiring about this deck with Carol, she calls it first generation original. So unlike in the digital world, when you say first generation, it's usually a less sophisticated form of it. But because we are talking analog here, the first generation is the first copy of the original. So it is the closest to the original is the first generation. So when you call, when she calls this first generation, I believe it is in the sort of analog sense of the word. So this is what she calls it. So first generation, she calls it. So if you inquire about the first generation, and if you are willing to pay 150 and 150 is within your budget for a tarot deck. As I said, I'm in no position to make any comments about the effectiveness of her production process, but I can tell you that because it is manual, when I say manual, I meant it's not digital, it is analog. It becomes quite labor intensive. I can see why a lot of time and energy. None of these are digitized. None of this is digital work. So I'm actually quite dumbfounded when I realized that she actually literally have to mount her original artwork onto pieces of papers. And so she's currently in the process of creating a white border with no title, because the titles are quite squeezed. And a lot of us, you know, like this is called awakening, and a lot of us seem to prefer to create our own understanding rather than being so guided by other people's keywords or revised titles. But it means that she has to remount. It means that she has to lay out each and every one of her original artwork 5 inches by 7 inches onto big white sheets of paper with grits on them, with the space around each of the art pieces laid out, and then she then have to take a photo of that for all 78 cards, and then only then she can then have an original white border with no titles. So it's a whole different world of creation procedure there that I unfortunately do not know enough to comment on, other than how delightfully old school, and it also means painfully labor intensive. And so she has no digital masters. All of her masters are actual paintings of paint on paper, hand, brush in hand, paint on paper. So this is first generation copy of the original Illuminated tarot, copied directly from her original art pieces, 78 Illuminated Rider-Waite-Smith Pixies images. The black borders are still a bit thicker in some and thinner in others, and I know that going in. So like that one there, for example, as mentioned by Kasia. Again, I'll link the videos below. And I am quite happy about this. The only one note is that the lamination here is home laminated. So riffle shuffling will weaken, well, shuffling full stop, I guess. The edges here, the bonding can often separate from what I understand, but that's easily fixed by putting a thin cloth over the card and then using an iron to iron no more than a few seconds at a time, and setting the iron to silk or wool. Be very careful to make sure that it's not too hot and that you don't place the iron too long over the cloth covered card to rebond or resealed any accidentally separated lamination bonds around the edges there. Again, this is laminated paper so that it has the flexibility that is higher than normal cards. But the whole deck, if you measure, the whole deck's actually quite thick. It's thicker than standard modern playing cards or modern cardstock, modern tarot deck. And look at this. I don't have the standard original edition to compare this with, but I know someone who has, and hopefully she'll make a video. Not quite sure whether this is my eyes or maybe it's just the nature of the artwork. Some feels more crisp than others, so this here is just the nature of the artwork being copied, I suppose. So you can see the sky there. I think a lot of people are very, very attracted to her renderings of the sky and the atmospheric coloring, which really transport us mood-wise. And so if you are an intuitive reader especially, or an emotional reader, what I would call an emotional reader, it's very good. In my experience with Carol's decks have been very intriguing to me. So yeah, so I think the reason why she hasn't offered this before is because she felt that it's too high, the price is too high, and she can't offer it for any less. So as someone was saying, if you take the bag itself as say about $20, then this is about $120 then, the deck itself. And this is such an amazing, the fabrics that she used are either vintage or one of a kind, so that you can't actually order the same exact bag because she often doesn't have the fabric for it. She upcycled fabrics. And so I know I wanted orange for this deck, so I'm so glad that this was presented to me as an option. And initially, again, I had initially intended not to have any card attached to such beautiful fabric because I just can't bear the idea of I felt like the fabric deserved better, but she has kindly attached a glitter deck for me. Look at that. The angels, a glittered card, not deck, a glittered card here. The angel's wing, the red, the fire, the wing. That's made of fire. Well, I don't know whether it's made of fire, but I'm sorry, my device can't autofocus. It has to be manually focused. She or he looked a bit sunburned, but gosh, at this point, who cares, right? So anyway, so yeah, so that's the bag, which I am extremely happy about. Okay, so the rest, it's kind of, the bag is blank, not blank, but you know, white, and I'm quite happy, very, very happy about that, because the edges are white, so I could get away with a white bag. And extra world cards, so let's see what the difference is between that world and this world. So she did, I think, a few different majors, so you could see just a slight difference there. The sky is different. I prefer this actually. The sky here is a bit more subdued. Here this is a bit more like a precursor to the starlight with the blue sky. Here is a bit more that sort of dusk and dawn, which really inspire me, the color of dusk and dawn. This is kind of just plain blue. And then the temperance here, of course, there's a couple of versions, like this temperance with the red, with the blonde hair, not red hair, but there's this temperance as well, which is slightly different if you look at the hair. And temperance here is, what is temperance here? Hold on a second. There is temperance there. So this is the same temperance. Her original art is about this big, 5 by 7 inches. So she'll have to lay each of these cards on pieces of paper, photograph them, and then scale them, etc. So there's a lot of work, because it's all done in a manual, analog sort of way rather than digital. So yeah, so that is the original Illuminated Tarot, first generation, she calls it. I call it original. It is printed or copied directly from her actual artwork that she did in '88, I believe. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.